A very good morning and welcome to Morning Express on Advocate Broadcasting Network. Of course, this is the show where we talk politics and current affairs. I know you're wondering, where are the men? Anyways, when the men are not at home, of course, the women take over. So make sure you're part of this, of course, and we're going to be having a great time on the show this morning. And my name is Peace Ogenegbawe, and of course, I will be leading us on the show today. We are right on the news paper review, and I have my guest right here in the studio, and it's no other person than the publisher, Daily Courier newspapers, talking about Mr. Seun Oni. It's good to have you on the show this morning.
Good morning, and it's beautiful having you two on the show.
Oh, the pleasure is mine. All right, we will get into the news. Of course, several stories on the papers this morning, and I have a couple of papers right here, and we'll be taking some of the stories as we see it on the papers. And I have, starting with Daily Trust newspaper this morning. And on Daily Trust newspaper, the front page, I see this one saying, expect electoral reforms before 2027. And that's coming from the INEC chair. And this one says, the Magum's tenure, national secretary position, threaten PDP NEC convention. And then this one says World Bank queries NNPCL's remittance of subsidy proceeds. Still under the pictures, you see there, we see the story saying Boko Haram launches attack on another military base in Borno. And right under that, bandits abduct 5 persons from Plateau Market. This one says we will continue oil search in North. And that's coming from Ojulari. And man sentenced to death for killing friend over cup. And some sports stories there. That sports story says Flying Eagles dethrone Senegal, qualify for World Cup. NNPCL is still on the front burner, you know, of issues, especially with the coming in of the new GMD. I'm talking about Ojulari, with the World Bank now querying NNPCL's remittance of subsidy proceeds. What do you have to say?
That's a beautiful place to begin with this morning. But I think I've gone through virtually all the major dailies this morning, and I think none of the dailies in the country today actually did justice to what transpired from the World Bank meeting yesterday. Of course, print usually we write from angles, but there were so many conversations that ensued yesterday at the World Bank meeting. The meeting was actually the annual, more like a table talk, where the World Bank critiques the monetary and fiscal policies of the federal government. And it was a beautiful sight to behold yesterday, because you had in the same room the World Bank officials who had come with facts and figures to critique and assess the entire economy of the country. On the other side, you have the Minister of Budget and Planning, His Excellency Bagudu. You have the Minister of Finance, Wale Edun. You have the Minister of Telecommunication, Tijani Bosun. You also have the CBN governor on one side. In fact, you have someone representing the state, the subnational, the Plateau State Governor, Caleb Muftwank. He was there. And we also have private sector representative. And a number of issues were highlighted. Maybe I should begin with the positives. First, the First Bank highlighted the fact that the subsidy removal, the full subsidy removal from the federal government was already making inroad, affording the federal government and the subnationals more resources to do developmental projects across the country. That was the first positive. The second positive was that they highlighted the fact that the exchange rate harmonization is also yielding serious foreign revenues for the country. Another thing that was positively highlighted is the fact that for the first time as a country, we are beginning to see the monetary and fiscal policies handlers working together, which has stabilized the economy and a number of others. But on the negative, where we've seen a number of angles coming in here and there, is the fact that first, and I think I disagree also on that, is that the federal government should remove the electricity subsidy the way it has done for the fuel subsidy. That was a major issue yesterday. Secondly, it also highlighted the fact that there is still a measure of opacity with the central bank, where the lead story we've seen there on Daily Trust, and that what the government needs to do is to ensure that the revenue generating agencies like the CBN, the customs, and several of those should ensure that they are more predictable in the manner that they release their financial reports. Maybe something on a monthly basis. Some had actually suggested, why not do it weekly, since we sell our fuel on a daily basis? Why not have a weekly template of churning out your data so that we can monitor how, because a major area that was highlighted was the fact that since 2014, mid-2024, the NNPCL, as it's called now, had stopped selling its crude using a differential in foreign exchange. Before now, there is an amount set for NNPCL different from the amount in the market. So, but now it is that converging rate that they're selling. But they notice that in its remittances, it's not showing. What it shows in its remittance is more like there is still that tiny window that was afforded it the way it used to do before now. So the World Bank actually says something needs to be done in that opacity. They need to be much more transparent. And very vitally, the CBN also, the World Bank also critiqued the over-ambitious budget assumptions by the federal government. For instance, the federal government in its budget estimate estimated that Nigeria will be producing 2.1 million barrels of fuel daily. But as it is now, the highest we have done is actually 1.6 million. And so that wide differential, about 500 million barrels per day, that is going to result into a reduction in the amount of revenue that we accrue to the federal government. And if the federal government is not very careful, it might go back to the Buhari era days when there is a shortfall in budget financing. They now run to the CBN and start printing currency, which we call ways and means. And the moment we do that, the fragile recovery we have seen in the economy, we might go back to the days when we start borrowing to pay salary and a whole lot of other things. So,
but to be fair on the federal government, I would be thinking that they might be coming from the angle of what the resources that is available and what they can unearth from it, especially with removal of subsidy and some other waste that they could now add to production. Don't you think that could be some of the reasons for this?
Beautiful. I think the Minister of Budget and Planning, the former governor of Kebbi State, alluded to that. In fact, let me quote him. He said that the president crafted that budget, and he told them point blank that Nigeria should not be budgeting on its indulgences. Rather, it should be budgeting on its potentials. That is the days of just sitting back, laid back, and saying, custom will make 2 trillion, let our budget be 2.5 trillion. We are not, stretching. We are not stretching our capacity. That's budgeting on our indulgences. He says, so what the federal government wanted to do, initially, what is submitted was about 49.4 trillion naira budget before it now ramped it up to about 49.6 before it now ramped it up to about 54.999, almost about 55 trillion. So the World Bank sees that as being very ambitious. But from the monetary and the fiscal side, from what they said yesterday, it was very clear that it was well thought out. and that they were ready to put in all the effort, all the extra drive needed to ensure that it's not just a paperwork, but that goal of becoming a $1 trillion economy by 2030 is actually a reality.
Oh, well, let's hope we see the works, because I'm very sure the World Bank is looking for the works that will lead to this. Let's move a bit from the economy and let's look at INEC chairman. Expect electoral reforms before 2027. I know you are you are very conversant with what's happening with the electoral sector in Nigeria. INEC chairman coming up to say more reforms. The question that it brings to mind is, what has happened with the 2023 Electoral Act? What did we do with it? Did we produce 2022? I beg your pardon. Did we produce what is good enough to expect more reforms for 2027?
That's actually a question on the lips of everyone, but not speaking for INEC. We must also know that it's more like a traditional thing. After every election cycle, there's always an effort to more like do an analysis of the positives, more like a SWOT analysis. What were our strengths? What were the weaknesses? And again, what are the opportunities and the threats, so that we can improve on the forthcoming election. We've done that, I think, since 1999. After every election cycle, the election umpire meets with the National Assembly. So they had that meeting a few weeks ago in Lagos, and one of the major talking points from that retreat by the joint National Assembly Committee that oversees the INEC was the INEC itself presenting to them, after their own in-house analysis, presented some areas where they felt some adjustment needs to be made. And a number of those areas, we highlighted some of them in immediately after that meeting on this show. Include, for instance, INEC recommends that we should have diaspora voting. I think that's one area the National Assembly had always thrown away. That's not the first time they are raising that issue. Another issue is that our PVC, the PVC we use for voting now, is actually now archaic. The technology is archaic. So INEC suggested that the National Assembly should ensure that we go the whole haul of electronic voting, not piecemeal, the way we have seen. Another area of recommendation was that there should be special seat for women and PWDs.
Of course.
And INEC also suggested that for the first time, INEC was coming out to agree that there is a need to now carve out a different agency to monitor electoral fraud. Like we've seen now, INEC is also saddled with prosecuting any malfeasance during elections, and they've not been able to do that effectively because they are busy with election duty on election day. And most times the policemen who came to come and superintend and monitor or to supervise and ensure the security of election usually travel from afar. Sometimes people are posted from Kano to come to Ekiti State, come to Ondo State to come and monitor, to come and secure elections. So even if they had caught someone on the election day, when they are transferred back and the fireworks in the court begins, then you don't have the real person who is supposed to monitor that process. So there were a number of issues around that. So those are some of the recommendations, and I'm glad the INEC chairman is ensuring that these issues are in the news, so that those of us in the media, those of us people in the civil society and Nigerians, we also begin to tell their representative, because the ball is now in the court of the National Assembly to ensure that we have the needed amendment that will make our election in 2027 better than it was in 2023.
All right, let's pick just one more thing before we get to other papers we have. And this very interesting one from an NPC LGMD, we will continue oil search in the north. The question is, well, I think he's doing his bid as being the GMD of NNPCL. Oil searches and oil production is his thing. But do you think that is what the focus should be on right now?
Unfortunately, that should also be the focus. You must also bear in mind that as a country, like I did mention earlier, we are doing 1.6 million. A nation like Qatar is doing double of that. Saudi Arabia is doing multiple of that.
So is the challenge that we do not have enough oil wells to produce up to what we are looking for, which is a 2.5? Is that the challenge we're having at the moment?
No, that's not the challenge at the moment. But you must also consider it's more of a complex web, all right? The Niger Delta as it is today, there are still areas where prospecting for oil is still a bit difficult. That's the truth. But you cannot imagine we now have other options to ramp up our numbers. Maybe the Bauchi prospecting ground, where you have very minimal security issues. So that simply means you can, and don't forget we also have a Dangote refinery that is domestically doing a whole lot, that can even turn us to a self-sufficient nation, all right, that needs a whole lot of local feedstock. Of course, it's in the news that we've not been able to supply the maximum, the optimum quantity it requires. So sometimes it needs to import some of its feedstocks. So if we have other options, why not as a country, so that we can wrap up our numbers, we have all the revenues required. But there is also that northern states in the country having this feeling that if we start prospecting oil, we will just join the company of people who earn extra subvention from oil prospecting, and you can expect that. So the pressure is also on him. Come to our side. Let us also join the League of States who are also prospecting for oil.
Okay, let's move away from Daily Trust newspaper and let's get to the Daily Times newspaper. And there's something very, very interesting on the front page of Daily Times newspaper this morning, and that's the big story there. It says Fubara can't decide for Rivers whether or not to return as governor, and that's residents. Just at the top of that, we have 2027 Duma waits PDP without reforms, and that's coming from the FCT Minister, Barrister Nyesom Wike. Labour Party begs Tinubu to rein in Governor Oti over alleged threat to Abure NWC members. And this one says just underneath the picture right there, I see this one saying Saraki 7-man committee to organize PDP NEC meeting May, National Convention August. 4 die over cholera outbreak in Plateau Village. West Africa security, okay. Just under that one, on the red bar there, I see this saying insecurity of Pueblo escalates war against cultism. Quite interesting stories on the Daily Times newspaper this morning. Before we get into the Labour Party and its political brouhaha that is going on at the moment, residents saying Fubara can't decide for Rivers State whether or not to return as governor. Now, this somewhat looks different from what we see when we've seen videos of peaceful protests, even prayer protests, if we have to call it that way, that has gone on in Rivers State. Even with the latest being the NLC, the May Day celebration, where the workers in River State did not do the usual march past, that we see. They had a protest. Now, seeing these visual representations and seeing this headline, what do you make out of it for River State?
Well, I would say the statement sounds partisan and is a bit reckless. First, the 6-month window, the Constitution is very clear about that, is to now create a leeway for peace so that the constitutionally elected governor can now resume back his position. So my only concern in all this issue, and I think the Minister of FCT did alluded to that yesterday while he was having his engagement with journalists, is the fact that if we are not careful, the time will tick and it will be 6 months. And nothing solid in terms of fence mending
would have happened.
And that would be very sad. Because if after 6 months, fences are not being mended, so that the principal actors, and we know the principal actors in this, Fubara himself and the people on his side, we have the ex-governor, who is now the minister of the FCT, and we have the Rivers State House of Assembly on one side, and on the larger side, Rivers State citizens who are actually bearing the brunt of this whole issue. I expect, because I was really surprised when elders of Rivers clearly they took side when the whole issue actually came up. And one of the things I could recollect I said then was that it will be difficult as an elder, especially when you are a body of elders and you are taking side in that situation. It will be very difficult for you people to be a part of the peaceful reconciliatory effort that will be put in place. And as it is now, I think virtually all the elders in Rivers had actually lost a place on the table for fence mending. And that's why political party actors like governors on one side, geopolitical zone actors should be, and maybe religious leaders. They really have a place, a role to play to ensure that by the time that 6 months elapses, because constitutionally, the president actually has the leeway to extend it for another 6 months if there is no serious reconciliatory effort to see it. But I'm also happy because at least the minister mentioned yesterday that he had reached out to him. And that is at least one leg in the reconciliatory effort. So let's see how they now build on this overture in the coming days and in the coming week. But to say that he doesn't have a say in his coming, I think that's a bit partisan. After 6 months, I think what is reasonable is that by then, a whole lot of give and take, because that's what you require in this instance. Like I used to tell people, there's no way you can flog a child and you still tell the child not to cry. People can be voted in by their constituent. Not one, not two, 20-something of them, and you deny them their salaries, you deny them, decent sitting arrangement as a governor. So it doesn't matter how you explain that is biting more than you can chew. So those are some of the areas he must give. Let them do their work, and on his own side, he must also rein in. I was happy yesterday, he went public, told his supporters to control their temperament, the type and the choice of words. And I think that's a good way to begin.
All right, so that's a good way to begin, and we hope that these decisions of those that we call somewhat decision makers, in the Rivers State matter, doesn't have so much effect on the residents, because this seems to be what is happening at the moment.
Unfortunately, it's too late. It's already having effect on the resident. Governance is actually at a snail pace because the person coming in actually has limited powers. And so there are a number of things, the way you can walk up to your chairman of local government, council, there are administrators there. But those administrators are not there at the behest of the people. They are actually there as appointed people by the state administrator. So the way you can walk up to your councillor, your chairman, your House of Assembly members and speak to them about your needs there, you can't do that in this emergency arrangement. So people are already suffering. So it is just good for them to tone down these rhetorics, give peace a chance, so that democracy can have its reign again in Rivers.
Now let's shift our pace to PDP, and 2027. Of course, the Federal Capital Territory Minister yesterday made mention of some of his displeasure and the way PDP is handling some of the matters. And of course, just like we have on the Daily Times this morning, it says doom awaits PDP without reforms. Do you agree with the minister on that?
Well, he's already on his path to doom, that is the PDP. I just hope they can quickly retrace back their steps.
Do you think there is hope?
I think there is hope because you are dealing with human beings. Human beings, like we are told, they are social animals. In other words, a human being can tell you my decision is cast in stone and wake up tomorrow morning and just wind back the hands of time and just have a different detour. So since they lost that election, I think from their primaries, that house has been divided and everyone has been holding to his guns. And you and I know that a house that is divided against itself cannot be successful. And that has been the harbinger of the crisis you are seeing in the PDP. And the only way it can actually buy back time and begin to have a semblance. But let me be very honest. When it comes to 2027, PDP is almost not a contender as it is now. But I think it can still buy back, because what we are seeing now is that it's fast sinking. But it can quickly mend the major areas where this water is entering a ship, so that at least it can sail and still remain afloat in 2027. You know, comically, the chairman of the APC said a few days ago that by the end of 2025, we might just be ready for the burial of PDP. You know, and that, but it can see, you know, maybe we can liken it to a party that is in ICU. It has oxygen on its nose, but there is still a room for revival.
Talking about more parties in ICU at the moment, just like you said, Labour Party is another. Of course, Labour Party is now begging the President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, to rein in Governor Oti, especially over alleged threats, you know, to Abure and of course the NWC members. The Abure faction is not accepting what the Supreme Court is saying. We have INEC on one hand, we have the suspension of Alex Oti on one hand, we have the last presidential candidate flag bearer of Labour Party, that's Peter Obi. On another hand, it seems everyone is in their own pockets of space in this matter. Do you think the president waiting in would do somewhat to help the matter on ground with the Labour Party, especially with the fact that the president, politically speaking, isn't in sync with the Labour Party?
You know, that comment for me should win an award because it was I think it's very childish to ask the president to come and help you resolve internal political of your party, opposition party. It's very childish for any adult to say that, and is a joke taken too far. As we speak, the Labour Party actually has 3 chairmen. We have Nemadi on one side, you have Abure, you have what's the name of this old man again? He also claimed that he's the chairman of the party. I
think I will be the fourth.
So you have the chairman of the party.
Yeah.
So to now call, but the thing is that the constitution of the party seems to be on the side of Abure. The power brokers seems to be on the side of Usman, right? Why the spoilers are on the part of what's the name of this Baba? I don't know how his name. They are. So you have these 3 camps in Labour Party, and from the permutations, the type of inroad the Labour Party had during 2023 election, if anybody is expecting that in 2027, you should perish that thought. On a daily basis, at the state level, for instance, in Enugu State, virtually all the members they have in the House of Assembly, they actually dominated that house before now.
Exactly.
But they have all defected to the PDP. In the House of Reps, virtually on a weekly basis, Labour Party rep members are depleting.
Yeah.
At the red chamber, we are seeing the same thing. We might just see a whole lot of the chieftains move and drift to other political parties before 2027?
Now, this brings me to this particular question, and that's the question of how we have our political class moving from one carpet to the other. You know, if we look at some of or most of the members of the Labour Party, they once were in different other parties, probably for issues of more interests to get what they're looking for, you know, and probably because of the sentiments or sensational feel that came with the Labour Party. Some of them moved. Of course, some of them moved with Peter Obi while he moved to the Labour Party. And so, seeing them moving out of the party, some started as early as 6 months into governance. They start moving out of the party, you know. What does this say about our political class and their understanding of political matters and ideologies that comes with party?
I think you rightly surmised it using the word ideology. All the political parties, and I use that word very cautiously, all the political parties we have in Nigeria today are not ideologically driven. They are not. Like the governor of Akwa Ibom State put it yesterday, political parties in Nigeria are simply vehicles to take you from one place to the other. That's what they are. And so when they get to that place and they think moving to the next destination will require another vehicle, all they just need to do is pay their way. They are light from here, pay their way, because as a big gun, one of the things, when you see stadiums packed full and all of that, don't just think is it coming. No, they are also bringing resources, they are bringing goodwill, they are bringing sometimes their networks and their net worth to the new political party. So it is what it is, just a vehicle from moving yourself from one political interest to another political interest. And that tells us something. The people are not actually at the heart of how political parties are run in Nigeria. And until we return back to those days of the First Republic, the Second Republic, where the people own the political parties. As it is today, I can tell you without any equivocation that the wealthy class own political parties today. The wealthy class own the political parties. So we must get back to that period, that era in our political evolution, where the people own the political party. When we get back to that point, you will now see that it will be a bit very difficult, because when the people own it, people will now determine which political party they join based on the ideology of the various political parties. But as it is today, no political party has an ideology. They are all the same. That's the truth.
Okay, let's move. Before we leave Daily Times newspaper, quite an interesting one there is on insecurity, and it says Okpebolo escalates war against cultism. Of course, yesterday we saw the governor of Edo State, Governor Monday Okpebolo, calling for the immediate arrest of S.C. Kako, who is the New Black Movement president. This is just one of the many moves to curb cultism in Edo State. What do you have to say about this?
Well, it's not anything new, really. Edo State has always been in the news for the huge number of diverse occultic movements in the state, and they have largely been instrumental to the breakdown of law and order in several parts. Before, it used to be limited to the state capital and a pocket of other places, but they have actually spread. They have their tentacles in most of the local governments in the state, and I really don't envy the governor, because he actually has his work cut out. One of the things he campaigned with during the campaigns was that he was going to rein in cultic activities across the state, so that there will be a more secured place. So you're now having increasing speed of court clashes the past few weeks, and it was the right call to make. Tell security operatives now putting names to who to be arrested, not just saying reigning court activities. I think that will help to douse the tension and ensure that some people are brought to book, justice done, and we have a semblance of peace in Edo State.
Yeah, talking about peace in Edo State, let's move to another paper, and we have the First News paper right here, and I'll just take a story. Of course, we'll look at the stories on the front page. We have that one on the top of the masthead saying Dangote Refinery offers 10 naira rebates, lowers effective petrol price to 825, and if I must say, this should be the third rebate that is happening in few months. And away from that, I see this saying federal government redeems 100 billion naira sukuk, launches new 300 billion naira issue for infrastructure, court fixes July 2 for trial of 109 foreigners accused of internet fraud. And then this one says the federal government borrows 10.85 trillion naira domestically despite mounting debt warnings. Market saw as US and China agreed to drastic 90-day tariff reduction. And the big story on the First News newspaper this morning says under fire, 1.5 million UTME candidates petition jam over purse cause. Board bows to pressure, orders review of 2025 exam. And I see this one right there saying ISWAP terrorists overrun military base, kill 4 soldiers in Borno Marte. And then this one says Fubara visited me with 2 APC governors, wants peace, and that's coming from Wike. And this last one says UK bans overseas care worker visas. Quite interesting headlines on this one, but I would like to stay on the big story for the First newspaper. 1.5 million UTME candidates petition jam over purse cause. This year's jam has been on the front burner with so many candidates failing the examination. But I would like to take it from a point of retrospect. For some years, especially at the beginning, with the introduction of the CBT kind of exams, it seems as though we have seen more candidates falling short. We've seen cutoff marks dropping. In fact, this year we don't even know what the cutoff is going to be at the end of the day. We've seen cutoff, could drop from as high as it used to be 200. Now we see 180. We see, it seems like instead of the education, moving forward, moving upwards, it seems to be depleting. What's your take on this and the way examination is being conducted?
Well, thank you for that question, and I think it's actually the trending issue across the length and breadth of the country. But it's hydra-headed. The challenges are hydra-headed, and it's very easy to point fingers at government. Of course, government has its own shortcomings, like the World Bank meeting that was held yesterday. Like I told you, there were a bundle of issues that were discussed, and one of the areas that the World Bank also highlighted was the very little investment of the government to health and education. In fact, the World Bank actually used the word that the investment into health and education in Nigeria is one of the lowest globally. That was the indictment on the federal government. So that is on one side. But there is also, on the other side, parents. We have the culture of parents just moving their children to special centers and not giving them all the needed support to ensure that they do very well in their examination. On the other side, we also have the children themselves. Like you rightly cited, we have the CBT, and we have the growth of the usage of phones and computer. Ordinarily, you think it should be deterministic of the performance in CBT.
Exactly.
Like if my mom uses a phone, she'll be 70 if be in 2 years. She uses a phone, and the thing is that if you send that SMS, you are the one that is the day you see her, you're going to read the SMS and say, I sent it to her. She really said, I don't know how to check it. That is understandable. That's a different generation. But for somebody who can practically, turn
kids lower than 5 years will turn your phone around for you.
My 4-year kids, I have to start locking some of my devices. So it's the mom's own that they're always having fist cuff with. He will go to places, download things by himself. How did you know this? Yeah, I saw it while I was watching this. He will see it on TV, carry the mom's phone, go on Play Store, download it on it. That's the reality. But to now go to exam hall and say you can't use CBT, but you can do other things that are even more complex than CBT. There's no way you can explain that. It tells you that the attention this generation is giving to the academics is depleting by the day, and government, opinion molders, the home, we have to come together and help salvage a generation, because no generation will be in a pole position to compete, because don't forget, the world is not a global community. If our children are not doing well, it doesn't mean children from other climes are not doing well. That's the truth. And so we must quickly save a generation that just want to sit down and watch TikTok and watch Instagram and watch YouTube, but does not want to read his physics, his chemistry, his math, English, and wants to lay all the blame on government.
But do you also think the way the curriculum is being tailored needs to be changed? Because some school of thought are saying we can't keep using the same curriculum we used for the older generation, for the children of a generation that is already existing in the digital age, and then you want them to assimilate what is going on.
Sadly, I think I'm in between both generations. I was in the generation who wrote JAM on paper, and I think I was privileged. I also did a few exams using CBT. So I'm in between. And I know that it doesn't matter how you want to explain it. It's more complex doing paper exam than doing the CBT. That's the truth. But I'm not saying there is no need to review our curricula to conform with best practices globally. That's on one side. But there is no way anybody wants to really convince me that a generation that can practically do anything on phone, on tablet, the only problem they have is when it's exam on CBT. They
will need to explain that to us.
They will need to explain that to us. That 1.9 million plus people wrote exams, and about 1.5 million cannot score up to 200. That's a serious issue. We've always had UTME failures, but this year is on another scale entirely. And I was also a bit relieved when the examination body says he will have to review, possibly go through the thing again and review it and see whether there's a glitch or something. Let's just give this generation
let's hope that there are technical issues, All right, before we move out of this, quite interesting story made the lower banner of First News, and that's UK bans overseas care worker visas. Now, I don't want us to focus on the ban, but I want you to highlight, what benefits this could do, or this could have on, or what positive impact this could have on our own health sector, and how we can harness this, for the benefit of our own health sector.
Well, that would take me back again to what I said earlier. Our investment in our health sector has been very abysmal. I think the World Bank quoted a figure of 1.3% to GDP of our investment in health sector, and it has continued like that since 2022, one of the lowest globally. what are the positives from this? Is the fact that that pool that readily quickly just dump the country and japa abroad to go and do caregiver work, you will not have that pool again. You have to apply, come into the country, they assess you before you are given visa. Unlike what we had before, you can just be given visa in Nigeria, then you start going. Okay, so that means that will be reduced, but we'll be able to harness the benefit when we now invest more. All right, you heard about the Medipool that was launched from the fake meeting yesterday.
Yes.
That will result to a reduction in prices of drugs in government hospitals nationwide. We must also find a way. And one of the things to do is that there are medical staff that we've always known that their job is so essential and very vital. Maybe we need to begin to check their remuneration, we have to check their job security, and a number of other factors that will ensure that these people stay here and they have a decent living wage to live on.
Okay, let's get to another paper. Let's look at the Nigerian Tribune newspaper this morning, and this one says World Bank: Nigeria's economy needs to generate better jobs, reduce poverty, commends Nigeria's growth trajectory, says economy recorded fastest growth in about a decade in 2024, wants pace of growth to accelerate further, projects inflation to fall to average of 22.1% in 2025. And we see this one saying JAMB engages IT experts to review 2025 UTME. And still on the Nigerian Tribune newspaper, I see this particular one saying Wabar declares PDP revival as BOT inaugurates new members. Federal government raises 1.093 trillion naira via Sukuk to fund infrastructure development, and that's coming from the Debt Management Organization. And then I have the same Wike wants PDP over 2027 presidential ticket, says Fubara visited him with two APC governors. Federal government to overhaul underperforming discourse. Okay, let's look at this last one. That's federal government to overhaul underperforming discourse. The power sector is another sector in Nigeria that is having so much pressure mounting on them. With this new initiative, will it have any effect on the power sector and the challenges we've had so far in it?
I think it's actually not a new news. It's really not news for me because we had Yola for many years, had been under force majeure. We've had Ibadan Electricity Distribution Company, had been under government ownership for some times now. And I think two others, I can't readily get their name upstairs. The problem we've been having is attracting the right investors to come and take over this non-performing discourse. And that's where government needs to do better. Because what we have seen over the years, apart from maybe two or three, in fact, the funny thing is that the two dominant in Lagos, that tells you the strength of Lagos, the Eco Distribution and Ikeja, they are perhaps the best in their performance. So they like Abuja for a very long time. There was a period it was under receivership because he couldn't pay what he needed to pay. And so we had investors who really don't have the requisites, not just the technical, they also don't have the finances to run this discourse. So government must ensure that it attracts the right mix of investors so that we can have the much needed investment in the power sector, because that's a major drawback since this privatization of the power sector.
All right, let's before we call it a close on this segment, let's get to Daily Courier newspaper and look at some stories there. And this one says federal government approves Medipool to lower drug prices, and a swap overruns Borno town as Nigerian troops hit back in Sambisa forest. Panic in Marte as terrorists overrun military base, force mass displacement. Troops of Operation Hadinkai launch fears counter-offensive neutralize dozens in Sambisa forest. And an ICD saying Nigeria's economy grows amid soaring prices, and that is according to World Bank. 868 million naira defense funds diverted by former accountant general using proxy firms, and that's from Witness. BPP orders MDAs to enforce Nigeria First procurement policy, and Hamas frees Edan Alexander as Israel presses on with its Gaza assault. And of course, some sports stories there. AFCON under 20, Nigeria Egypt reach final after nerve-wracking shootouts. Security is on the front burner again, and this time around a swap back in Borno town. Where do we go from here?
I really don't know where to go from here. Is a huge question, and those in charge of our security, they need to know that losing ground to terrorists is not in our interest. And I think security experts have persistently warned that we might just have this situation we are having on our hands. It started about a few weeks ago when we suddenly, because it was sad and very sudden, we saw infiltration of terrorist groups into towns. They will come, kidnap, what we have not heard for some times now. Go into schools, go into villages, kidnap them, and start demanding for huge ransoms. What we thought, what security experts actually did say then was that was more like an indication that they are beginning to regroup. So when they regroup like that, they will need more resources, and they will do anything to ensure that they get the needed resources. And that if our military did not actually take the war to them, they will come. That's in their nature. These guys, they really don't care whether they will die or not. It's more an extremist orientation. And so what we expected was that the military will quickly tighten its nose and ensure that these guys don't regroup and begin to take towns and cities the way we've seen. But if they were bold enough to go and confront a forward operation base in Mate, that tells you that they have a whole lot in their necks. And from the report we got there, they practically went into the armory, got as many weapons as they wanted. The military hardwares that could be used to reinforce and run after them, they set them ablaze. And we saw videos of soldiers actually carrying their guns and running. And so we must not get to that point again. And it was a bit, it's an unfortunate situation. Why that was going, we are waiting for the military to actually release their own statement. Because they were quick to tell us that they went to Sambisa and did some things. But they have actually not issued any release on what happened in Mate. But I am suggesting that it's more like a decoy. The focus was Mate, but there were a few people who went through Sambisa. So the army went after Sambisa people, and you don't have enough people at Mate. So they seized the town, run riot, and as usual when they are going, they also terrorize people in the community. So people had to start running helter-skelter so that they will not be kidnapped. So our army have their work cut out. They must go back and ensure that no military has any foothold in any part of the country. This issue we had with our neighbors, security expert had actually said that is one of the reasons why these guys are regrouping. There is this joint patrol we usually have, Nigeria, Niger, other countries, to ensure that when we push them back, they don't have a place where they regroup and come and launch attack. But as it is now, we have more of a frozen diplomatic relationship with Niger on one side and a few of the other. So that's where I think they are taking advantage of that lull and they are launching attacks. So we must find a way to ensure that we stop this, so that those days of one day, one terrorist attack, we don't return back to it.
Thank you so very much. It's been a wonderful conversation this morning.